I'm sure you have realised or have heard about the number of death threats that's been issued to people in different parts of Northern Ireland. I know everybody, especially our politicians, are trying to pretend that there's nothing happening in this country. Well, that couldn't be further from the truth. I'll tell you exactly what's going on, and it was explained to me very well on Friday night by men who are now under death threat and are considering leaving their homes. They said for 35 years, and some of them had been attacked, some of them had been shot on a number of occasions, but for 35 years they stood their ground. Now they're being asked to live in these areas under death threat without any type of protection. Basically what's going on is politics being used, and another word that was mentioned is we have now got political terrorism. When I say political terrorism, I mean politicians using democracy as terrorism. Because what they did, Sinn Féin then demanded that these men hand in their weapons. Not only these men, but UDR men, policemen, anybody who was issued with personal weapons. Sinn Féin asked that they be taken off them and handed back in. It was part of the agreement, and that's what's going on. The police are doing that to try and get them removed. And Sinn Féin are checking every month how many weapons have been taken off the law-abiding community, because there is a number of Roman Catholics as well. Now, what are they doing then? Whenever they see that a number has been removed out of certain areas, they then start to issue death threats to these people. We haven't got the police force within them community to protect them. The men and women know that, who are living in these areas, and now they've removed their personal weapons, they start to threaten them. There's nowhere to turn to. So basically, we are allowing the people who protected this community for 30 years to be sacrificed. Men who would never consider leaving this country are now leaving. So ethnic cleansing is now going on through political terrorism. Now to move on from that, we had a situation in Craigavon on Friday night where a few people rung me because they said they could get no response from the police. And I'm talking about the senior ranks within the police, that there was things going on in Craigavon and there was no police to be seen. So I went down to the area, and I actually noticed that the police had the wrong road sealed off. Again, it's not their fault, it's the lack of resources that they have on the ground. I actually come across the device that was sitting on the road. It was a very good hoax, I have to say. Like, I wouldn't have lifted it. So it was a very good hoax. It was well put together, but it was an attempt to lure the police into the area. But Sinn Féin have the cheek to come out and attack the police because they come into the area and try and protect themselves. And then Sinn Féin will attack them if they don't come into the area because they say that they're leaving the community vulnerable to attack. The police can't win. Sinn Féin do not support the policing of the communities on the ground. Every excuse they get, they attack the police. Now, is that the type of justice, policing and justice that we're going to look Sinn Féin to come on board with, where they attack the police no matter what they do? Now, the problem with the police does not lie with the men on the ground. The problem with the police lies in the senior ranks, right from the chief constable to the area commanders, who will tell the politicians that they have enough resources. They don't have enough resources. And I seen it firsthand myself on Friday night, where I was overlooking at this device, where cars were driving up and down the road past this device, and if it had been real and went off and people maimed, Sinn Féin would have been on, slobbering out through the side of their mouths, condemning the police because they didn't do their job. But at the same time, if the police are in the area trying to keep presence in the area, they're being condemned because they're showing too much of a presence in the area. Sinn Féin are working the system, and the sooner our people waking up to that, the better. The other thing I want to move on to, Mr. Jimmy Spratt He's a DUP, but that's nothing to do with it. He sits on a committee that was taking evidence from the commissioners, I believe. And he had an outburst which you could only say probably come from a lunatic. He attacked the victims. He says the victims are getting millions of pounds and it's being wasted and it's going to nothing but fat cats. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Spratt, you'd know more about a big Kentucky than you would know about the victims. Because if you'd done your homework, you would find that the money is not coming to the victims' organisations to help the victims on the ground. We're inundated with people who need help. We haven't enough hours in the day to help people. But you will give funding to a group somewhere in some part of Northern Ireland who are only there in name only. You'll give them the same amount of money, near enough, as what you'll give to FAIR. Now, you directed your remarks to FAIR. The fat cat you're talking about obviously is me. And how we know that, there's only one group takes adverts out in the paper. And the victims pay for them adverts themselves because they feel that there's nobody out there raising their point of view. And I'll say this to you, Spratt. They have paid enough in blood and the loss of limbs and suffering over this last 35 years to have the right to express their view. And you better get used to it, because unless we receive an apology, we're coming to get an explanation from you. Because you talk about fat cats. How many death threats have you got in this last year? You've probably never got any in your life, because you were never any risk to anybody except yourself. You've done nothing for the victims that we know of. And as far as FAIR goes, we have been involved for this last 12 years working hard for the victims on the ground. People on the ground will tell you that FAIR has personally helped them on a one-to-one basis. So don't point the finger at us and say that we have done nothing for the victims, because I would ask you to back that up. And to talk about fat cats, the only fat cats I know of are sitting in round the doors of Stormont, or sitting in the corridors of Stormont. They are not sitting in this office or within this organisation. So you should be ashamed of yourself, given the women and children and the men that we've been involved in helping. And I could tell you this, if someone could get their hands on you, I wouldn't like to say what way you would end up, because they're disgusted with you. You live down in South Belfast in a comfortable area where the biggest danger is you'll trip over the bin when you go out to put it out. Come and live in South Armagh and call us fat cats. There's little chance of that. You may have driven an odd police car about it when it was fully armoured. But as some of your colleagues said to me, you were as much use as an ashtray on a motorbike when you were a police officer. Be man enough to confront us in the public and answer these questions, because we certainly have no problem answering anything that's put to us. If you got the guts to answer us, I can tell you this, we're coming for you. We're not letting you away with this. To degrade the victims the way you have did it, in behind closed doors, thinking you'd get away with it, well, you're not getting away with it. I can assure you of that. We'll do all we can to expose what you have said, not only in this meeting, but a number of other meetings, because you're a disgrace to what you're supposed to be. You certainly had never lived the way a lot of the men and women who served in South Armagh and died in South Armagh, and especially the people who lived in South Armagh. You had never had to live like that, or you wouldn't be saying what you're saying.